Welcome to Female and Fabulous. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's such a great way to be able to see women here really interested in this very important topic. My name is Karen, and I am the community manager here at Illuminate. Female and Fabulous is all about celebrating the unique strengths and qualities in a woman's life, but also talking about the different aspects of a woman's life. And this specific segment is very important on compensation. Compensation, I think, as you and I both know, that's a topic very close to a lot of our hearts because it directly impacts social progress, gender equity, economic empowerment. So I'm really excited to be joined by our leadership and compensation coach, Souhila Keffi, today. So over here, we normally start off with a quick introduction, just warm up a little bit. And we start off with asking Souhila, what is your elevator pitch in 30 seconds? I know it's a bit hard because you've got a lot of expertise. So if you could share with us your 30-second elevator pitch, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Karen. And I hope that we are going to make this session insightful and that everyone can leave with some takeaways and insights that they can use in their future salary negotiations. So very quickly, my 30-second elevator pitch. I am a compensation expert. I have been working for over 18 years in compensation in Europe, in Asia. So I've lived in Paris, Hong Kong, Singapore. So I have an international background working for, big tech company or finance and consulting, so multi-industry. And after gaining that experience, I realized that I wanted to have kind of a different mission, which is helping helping people understand what it means to be competitively paid, understanding what is their worth, and having a clear understanding on whether there is alignment between their worth and how they are compensated. I believe that being fairly compensated contributes to an engaged workforce. And therefore it's really not about making more money, getting more from your employer. It's just really about having that alignment and that makes you feel fulfilled at work. So what I do is I help clients navigate the pay conversations by leveraging my technical expertise from my compensation background and blending that with some coaching, because I'm also a certified coach. And essentially, I help them understand, okay, what's your worth? And then building on that, how do you need to approach your negotiation? What are some relevant questions that you should be asking? What is the preparation that you need to do? And how do you get to a satisfactory outcome? That was a bit more than 30 seconds.
No, we needed to hear it. That's fantastic. Love the journey you've been on, and especially, some people still need help in this topic. So it's great for you to be able to advocate for them and to be able to guide them in the correct right path. So the next one would be, what's one thing that's not on your LinkedIn profile?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. And so what's not on my LinkedIn profile is that as a compensation expert, I have not always been paid fairly and competitively.
Oh,
and
right.
I have not always had the courage to, be bold and go and ask for that raise that I 100% deserved, I think I was clear on the market data. But I just kept rationalizing that it wasn't that bad, The truth was that I was underpaid, but it was really hard for me to admit it.
Yeah.
And there's an interesting learning from my personal story is that to advocate for yourself, you don't just need to know your worth. You also need to believe in it. You
Yeah.
also need to be confident in communicating your worth, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's really like that story really um, it's somehow what makes me passionate about helping others because
Yeah.
I was there too.
Yeah.
I had one edge that other people didn't have is that I knew the data for the market. But even with market data may not be sufficient. There's more than market data behind, the courage that's needed to
Yeah.
ask for a raise.
That's wow. Thank you for sharing of that very real story. It makes it seem, very much more approachable in a sense that we all go through it, right? And it's thank you. But this is why we're here today to learn from you
Absolutely.
and get some actionable tips. So the first question I'm going to ask you is, so we're this topic for the month is cultivating courage, and we spoke about that earlier on. But let's go deeper into it. What does courage look like when you're advocating for fair compensation, and why is it particularly important for women to embrace this quality in the workplace?
Okay, so to answer that, I will start by saying courage is not, as many of us might think, the absence of fear. Being courageous doesn't mean that you're not afraid. You still have that fear inside you. It's
Mm,
just that you reach a point where you decide that there's something that's more important than your fear, and
mm,
that helps you overcome that.
mm,
So I think um, the way I see it basically is um, imagine there is one path where you are on, and it's a path of silence and self-doubt. And there is that other path on the other side, which is the path of self-advocacy. Courage is really that bridge. What's going to take me there from here to there? And to build courage, especially in the context of pay negotiations, there's a few things that are very important. I think it's really about speaking up clearly about your value, about your contribution. It's also about being proactive and stop assuming that someone is going to come and acknowledge your amazing achievements and offer you a 10% raise. That's not how it works. I think we all need to acknowledge that if you want to, of course, there are some environments where this might happen, but it's not something that's, it's not the, it's not the most common scenario. Let's put it this way. And you cannot delegate that responsibility to someone else. You want to make sure that you take charge, that you are in the driver's seat of your career, and you know how much money you are making. So being proactive is very important. Um, Also, being ready to respectfully challenge anything that sounds inequitable. If you don't agree with whatever your employer is offering you, or the recruiter that you are in conversations with, just challenge. Be firm on your position, especially if it's backed by market data. you know
mm, mm,
and I think one of the very important ones that we don't talk about a lot is know when to walk away.
mm,
Know when to walk away from opportunities that undervalue you. We talk about, when preparing a negotiation, we think about, okay, what's the best scenario? But we kind of neglect what's a situation where, there's nothing in it for me. Like, I'm not benefiting from that situation. And
mm,
sometimes it's painful to raise that question. Like, that's not an area where we usually want to go, but it's important that we go there and we ask ourselves, like, what's the level of compensation to which I cannot agree because there's a clear misalignment with my worth, with my experience, with my expertise. And down the line, it's going to come back and bite me,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. Because
So,
also when it comes to the compensation, let's say you just settle as well. And then you were mentioning previously about um, that also becomes the employees become less engaged in the long term, right? When their heart is not there, and then it's not worth it at all, isn't it?
And it's not worth it for the employee and
Yeah,
for the employer.
yeah.
Because as an employer, you're going to slow down your career progression.
Mm.
As an employer, you're not going to get the best of the employee. So it's really a lose-lose situation.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? So why, just to answer the second part of your question, why is it important to embrace courage in the workplace for women? I think it's extremely important because we know that gender pay equity is a concept that, you know, we see some slight improvement, but there's still a lot of work to be done in that area. So if we individually decide to become courageous in that space, we are somehow challenging the old norms. We are paving the way for other women.
Mm.
And we are basically raising the standard for everyone around us. So it's bigger than us, if you will. It's a powerful ripple effect that I think we should all keep in mind.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that. Fear, we were mentioning about that. There's, women sometimes experience fear or hesitation in negotiating their salaries. It's such a uncomfortable topic for some. What are the first steps that women can take to overcome this fear and confidently ask for what they deserve?
That's an excellent question. And before I answer that, I just want to make an observation on the fear around negotiation. I think fear around negotiation is absolutely normal. There's no negotiation that's comfortable. By definition, there is discomfort in a negotiation. So acknowledging that and approaching this negotiation with an open mind and thinking that, okay, I'm going to try to embrace the discomfort from that negotiation is, I think, something that helps a lot.
Mm.
The very first step to overcoming the fear, in my view, is the preparation. Preparation is absolutely essential. You need to know your numbers. You need to know your market value. You need to do some research, for equivalent roles, for your particular industry. Now, to be completely clear, you may not find the exact information on the web. And whatever you're going to find will give you some high-level indication of, what your role is worth. But it still gives you some guidelines. It still gives you a range. And aside from the market value, there is a very simple exercise that I would recommend all my clients to do as a very first prerequisite to preparation for negotiation. It's writing down what are your contributions, what are your skills, what are your strengths, what are your major achievements, what are the unique qualities that you bring and that make you invaluable as an employee. When you see that in writing, it really shifts the focus from, am I worth this, to here's why I am worth this, right? So it's a total reframing, and it helps in building that confidence. Rehearsing is also very important. Getting mentally ready by rehearsing or role playing or scripting helps you not only prepare yourself to the practical side of the negotiation, but also to feel, mentally ready, because you have mentally prepared yourself to that situation. So when you walk in that negotiation, there's a feeling of, oh, I've been through this before, you know. So it kind of helps minimize the fear around the negotiation. And I think another thing that I'd like to add is really reframing that negotiation and seeing it more as a business transaction. Like, don't see anything personal to it. You're not like, if your employer doesn't offer you the number that you're thinking about, it's not an insult. It's not something against your person. It's a business relationship with your employer. You bring something, and then there is a certain amount of money that they are ready to pay for the service you are offering. So detaching emotionally from the negotiation also helps to stay, composed throughout the conversation and, distance yourself from whatever the other party is saying or offering.
That's very, very valid. I find that sometimes people can bring their, heart and soul into something, but also then the emotions comes out as well. And like you said, keep it extremely neutral. And then, yeah, advocate fairly.
And it's not
Thank you.
easy. It's really, really hard. I'm not
Yeah,
saying it's easy,
yeah,
but that's why preparation is absolutely key.
yeah,
Once you prepare, you're convinced. You need to be convinced.
yeah,
Like if I coach you, Karen, and
yeah,
say you need to get more, like you won't be convinced. It has to come from within. It has to come from
totally.
you.
Yeah,
You have
yeah,
to really build that confidence from preparation. And again, rehearsal is what's going to help you detach
yeah,
emotionally when you are in the actual conversation.
yeah. Because if you're not convinced, then no one else will be convinced, right? It's as simple as that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's as simple as that. You're not convinced, no one else is going to convince you. And if you're not asking, no one else is going to ask for you.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And by
Absolutely.
the way, on that, I just want to share a quick statistics from Harvard Business Review that says that 85% of employees who negotiate their salary would get something out of that negotiation. And I think that's a very, very powerful number.
Mm.
What they get in the end doesn't really matter, right? Whether they get 100% of their expectation or 20%. But what I'm trying to illustrate with that data is that if you want to get something, you have to ask for it.
Absolutely. Ask and you shall receive in some form, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
So the next question is still on the topic of courage here, but when women are in less favorable environments for pay equity and companies, how can women still be empowered and advocate boldly?
Yeah. I mean, it's well, I think cultivating a mindset where you advocate and you are bold about what you need starts with owning your narrative as a woman, knowing what's your unique value and don't wait for others to come and give you what you need or what you want. So to develop this mindset, I think what's very important is to create a strong support system.
Mm.
That's extremely important, whether it's through mentors, women mentors, for example, or colleagues, or people who understand the importance of pay equity and being parts of groups. I believe that having role models, female role models, is particularly inspiring and motivating. And so
Mm.
if you are in an environment that really doesn't that's not very supportive of pay equity, you need to look out what's happening outside of my industry or outside of my company. And you'll get inspiration from there and courage and confidence from what's happening in the other industries or in the other companies. Um, but again, I think it's really about having a strong network that validates your worth, that acts as act as role models, and also it's important to separate what's your inherent worth from others' reactions or
Mm.
others' response, to pay equity. Or it's really important to not take it personally and understand that it's systemic.
Yeah.
It's something that's happening in that particular industry. I have nothing to do with that. And that doesn't change my value.
Mm. Awesome. Thank you. Um, Can you also share some strategies for women who can use to stay resilient and persistent when they face specific setbacks in their career or compensation goals?
Okay. How to stay resilient and persistent? Well, first of all, I think there is a specific mindset that um, many women can adopt in about compensation discussions. Like I said earlier, you can easily get a positive outcome from negotiating, but it's not always the case. And so when there is a setback, it's important to not see it as a definitive outcome. It's part of a process, rather. It's part of the process where, things might pay off in the longer run. You may not get an increase this year, but whatever you have been advocating for this year might translate into financial rewards in the next year, or might translate into a promotion, or it's an investment basically that you are making for your career. So developing resilience around that and understanding that whatever you do should not be perceived as a failure, but rather as an investment, right? So it's about shifting the inner dialogue again, from when you approach a negotiation, rather than saying, what if I fail? It's, what would I learn from that conversation? And you can, come out of a compensation discussion with new information about, it might reveal things about the company priorities, the next opportunity, anything is possible, really. So by entering a negotiation, you enter a new world of possibilities. It may not translate into pay increase, but whatever you learned from that, like whatever comes out of this, it's important to see it as a learning and an investment. I also think that setting incremental goals is very important, rather than all or nothing. Like either I win or I lose is not a good strategy. First, because it's having this mindset suggests that you're perceiving the negotiation as a confrontation, and it's absolutely not the case, right? It needs to be a win-win situation for it to be viable, for it to be prosperous on the long run. Everyone needs to come out of the conversation, with a positive outcome. And so it's important to see it as a collaboration and not as a confrontation. Again, focus on the long-term career trajectory rather than the short-term goals. And persistence is very important. Persistence is what's gonna get you to the final outcome that you are expecting. Hopefully, within a decent time frame.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That's really, really important. Can you now share with us, for women who want to advocate for their worth, some key phrases or strategy during compensation discussions to confidently communicate their value?
Yeah,
What
absolutely.
are the kind of languages they might need to use?
Yeah, so first of all, a strong opening is always important, and the posture that you adopt as you walk into that meeting. What I like to do with my clients is to do some visualization exercises where they see themselves entering that negotiation. It's very important that, they enter it with confidence, feeling confident that they can achieve something by, having that conversation. I suggest the vocabulary to be quite assertive, especially when you have data to support your request. So for instance, based on my research, I am worth X. What I don't advise my clients to do is, I think we could possibly consider, absolutely not. you know? So I think, I guess, I believe these are not good words to use in a negotiation. It's rather, you know, I would love to discuss how to align my compensation with the impact I've been making. Um, let's talk about how we can reflect my contributions to this team in my pay. The tone needs to be collaborative, but the vocabulary has to be assertive. Um, it's always great to also ask open-ended questions to understand what the other party has in mind. So that could be, you know, a magical question is how flexible are we, you know, or what can we do about it, you know, and leave it for the other party to share their thoughts, and really that helps set the tone as collaborative. But also any information that you are able to gather in that conversation is going to be useful to you. So it's good that you create opportunities for the other person to share. What else can I add in terms of the strategies? Well, I think, again, vocabulary really reflects the mindset. And that's why preparation is absolutely key and rehearsing is absolutely key. It's really about staying focused, being emotionally detached, and being assertive.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much. Those are some really, really helpful tips. Okay, great. I'm just mindful of time. We've got one more question and then we'll go into Q&A. Lastly, kind of to wrap this up, why is this, I mean, we all know this, why is it crucial for women to support and encourage each other in financial and career goals? And how does this collective courage drive progress in workplace equity?
I think that's a beautiful question. And that's really, at the end of the day, the most important thing and what drives me the most. It's very important to openly talk about these things. I think pay transparency, there is some progress that's being done around that. In the US, for example, where salary ranges are now communicated in certain states in job offers. The European Commission already has also set a deadline for companies to disclose pay ranges when they hire. So this is a very hot topic at the moment, but there's still so much to be done. So I think, as women coming together, talking about pay in a very open manner, breaking the taboos around that, getting our encouragements from each other, celebrating each other's win. It's very important, and it creates a culture where fair pay is normalized. It's I wish we can get to a point where it's no longer a matter of if women would ask, but rather how women are asking, you know? And so this solidarity between women is what's gonna boost individual confidence and really push the entire workplace towards more equity. Like I said earlier, mentorship is an accelerator because it helps learning, it helps confidence building, networking connections, also, give you more access to insights and to opportunities. So we really need to encourage each other and have each other's back. And like I said earlier, the courage of one woman to go and ask for a raise is creating a ripple effect that many others can benefit from. Like, I think that's really how we should approach any conversation. And to finish, and probably as a closing remark, I want to say that, and based on what I see from my clients, a lot of women feel that they are asking for a favor when they ask for a raise. They are afraid of being perceived as greedy. They are afraid of being perceived as selfish. And so you're not asking a seat at the table. You already have. You already are at the table. I think that's very important to keep this in mind.
Thank you. That is so wow, it gave me goosebumps. It's really, really important topic. And it's such a nice and very important reminder to really know your place and know your worth, especially in this day and age. So thank you so much for that, Souhila. We've got two pre-submitted questions that I wanted to share with you. The first one is from Sandra. How can I approach a negotiation without coming across as too aggressive?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think I partially answered that earlier in saying that it has to be approached as a collaboration rather than a confrontation. You have to seek a win-win for you and for your employer. And don't take things personally. If you don't take things personally, you will not come across as aggressive. Be prepared, be composed, and don't see it as, you know, a fight over something. It's really a conversation where both parties will reach an agreement. So it's about shifting that perception of the negotiation. It's you know, we have this tendency to think, so for example, if I am purchasing a piece of land and I'm negotiating with you, you're offering a higher price than what I'm ready to pay, and you're not willing to bring the price down, I might take it personally, but it has nothing to do with me or with you. It's just a transaction. So keeping this in mind helps a lot, and also understanding, you know, where the other party comes from. You know, if they're not able to offer you an increase, there might be some very clear reasons, you know. Now, it's very important to say that you might know your worth, but you might also be paid competitively, you know. It's not always, you're not always in a situation where you are severely underpaid, and, you know, there are processes, there are ranges in place in, you know, in the company's compensation systems, and, you know, it may not end up being a favorable outcome. But don't take it personally. And whatever you are advocating for is an investment for the future.
Awesome. Thank you. And the last question, which I think you may have touched on previously, but if you could provide us with some practical tips, it says, any practical tips for negotiating compensation with recruiters and or company human resource teams?
Yeah, well, I think that's pretty much what I was saying earlier. Be prepared, do your research, come with a sense of what your position is worth in the market. Have some clear arguments to explain what makes you unique. Use the right vocabulary, have the right posture and mindset. Approach it as a collaboration rather than a confrontation. And be ready to pivot, right? You can't really master how a conversation is going to go. So agility is extremely important in negotiations.
Yes.
I think that's pretty much, you know, how I would summarize it.
Thank you. Well, I don't know. I was like, that was super, super empowering. So thank you so much, Souhila. Thank you for spending the 35 minutes with us and sharing your golden nuggets, words of wisdom to our community. So if you have any questions for Souhila and want to connect with her, please do so on LinkedIn, and I'd love to connect too. So we'll see you next month's session for finding your purpose in December. But for now, thank you so much once again, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you,
Everyone.
Souhila. Thank you, Rumi.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you.